Hello and welcome to what is probably going to be the first of many videos about Naval Action. This is basically a what is video to show what is known about the game and what the devs plan to do with the game. The video in the background is a small showcase of the ships currently in the game. So I'm basically just going to run through what's in the game right now, what's planned for the game, and then what might hold this game back, what might make it stand out, my personal opinion on it, and we'll go from there. So some of these features might be obsolete by now. Some of them might be outdated, some might be changed. This is very early alpha for the game, so not everything in this video will be in the final game, and I'm sure a lot of the stuff that is mentioned might already be outdated by what the devs have planned. So what is Naval Action? Naval Action is an upcoming Age of Sail MMO. The best way to describe what is currently available and what is currently planned is to call it a mix of Pirates of the Burning Sea and EVE Online. As it stands right now, the alpha testing is based on combat mechanics, and introducing new ships and checking them for bugs, improvements, sailing characteristics, water characteristics. Battles take in an instant zone. The first thing that many people say is, how does it compare to Pirates of the Burning Sea, which is the most successful and well-known Age of Sail MMO game currently available. The game, Naval Action, is a lot slower paced. Ships are less nimble, and maneuvers must be planned in advance for bigger ships, such as flipping through the wind or making a sharp turn. These things take time, there's momentum, you need to keep your speed up. Aiming is manual, so there's no click on and then click a skill and the shot fires and it's automatically aimed. In Naval Action, you have to actually range it, aim, shoot the broadside, account for pitch, account for roll, account for weather. It's a lot more skill-based than Pirates of the Burning Sea ever was, for shooting anyway. There are no magical skills in Naval Action. There are no debuffs. There are no magic defense increases. There's no invulnerability. The only skills are basically crew commands, which are crew-focused sailing, basically where the crew will make you sail faster, the crew will focus on gunnery, the crew will focus on maneuvers, survival. So there's no magical skills in Naval Action. But there are repairs, which will help, and how they factor into the end game, how you get them, how much they do, are there different tiers, that's all unknown right now. But NA looks to be more of a simulator than Pirates ever was, and when it comes to sailing, gunnery, all the advanced mechanics. And sailing is more complex. You can sail with, the simple WASD controls, and you can do okay in it with it, but to get the most out of your ship, you have to manually control your sails when tacking through the wind, when making sharp turns, to get the most performance out of your ship. You have to actually manually control it. So right now, in the game, there are some amazing features, but most of the game is still planned or in development. It's not come to light yet. So in the game right now, you can have customizable cannon loadouts, so you can basically swap out 12 pounders for 9 pounders, so you have a better, faster reload. There's amazing physics right now in the game, including damage physics. Your ship will tilt more if it's taken more hits on one side, so there's more water entering on one side. Ship collisions are beautiful. They do damage. They feel forceful. They feel impactful. The game is relatively bug-free right now, the combat anyway. The developers are taking suggestions from the community. They are always on the forums posting. It's good to see. The graphics are really good. It looks like a beautiful game for what it is, for the amount of developers. And the small details are amazing. The pitch that affects your cannon shots, the rudder inertia, just the small details are just spot on right now. So this is all just the combat of the game, but the big part of the game that has not been talked about or discussed much in the public forums is the MMO part of the game, the open world, which is the main draw for a lot of people to this game, because the combat in itself, while fun and exciting, is not, gripping enough to be a complete game by itself that you'll sink, thousands of hours into. So the open world is where it'll be, made or broken, basically. So the devs have released some future goals for the development of Naval Action. They basically break down into what they want to see in the complete game. So for combat, they want to have fort guns, they want to have mortars, they want to have carronades, and other cannon types, so long-barreled cannons, short-range cannons, who knows, maybe swivels eventually too, hopefully. They want to have boarding combat, but it's not going to be avatar based. It'll be more of a strategic view or giving orders. That's what devs have said so far. So it's not going to be, you're controlling someone who moves around on the deck. It's going to be more of like you are the general, the captain, saying, push this side, go that way, who knows, we'll see. They want to add more ships. So currently in development there's the Ontario and the Light Brig, which will definitely arrive soon. The Trincomalee, which is another frigate they want to add. They want to add the Santisma Trinidad, which is a 140 gun monster of a ship. They want to start testing open world gameplay. They want to try and turn this game into an MMO. So the current size of the Caribbean is 16 million square kilometers. It currently takes 30 to 60 minutes real time in the fastest ship to reach La Grenade from Guadeloupe. So that's a fairly large size map. It's not big enough where you'll fall asleep when you're just sailing, but it's definitely a huge map. There's going to be no levels or classes, so everything will be self-determined. So basically you'll start with a small allegiance to a nation, and if you don't trust that nation, you don't use that nation, you fight them, you sink them, etc., etc., you can become a pirate. Or you can switch nation allegiance, you can become French, you can become Spanish. It depends on your actions instead of what you pick in a character creation screen. There's going to be guilds and global conquest where you take over ports, you take over areas, but that's all still not discussed much. No one really knows what it's going to be like. But what they have said is that guilds will be able to own cities, so how that turns out we'll see. There's going to be crafting and trading, with a full crafting system, full economy, player-driven, ships are all player-built, etc. So just to give an idea of one of the systems the devs have talked about, the devs have said that exploration will be a viable profession, so to speak, in the game, where basically you'll be able to send expeditions to islands, continents, etc. if you have the hired officers with necessary skills. So depending on the skill level, an expedition can make a number of discoveries, starting from animals to plants to historic artifacts to shipwrecks, etc. Discoveries and collections are crafted into books or atlases, which then the explorers can turn into titles, items, rewards from the geographic or royal societies. Basically what they're saying is that you'll be able to make a living in the game. You won't have to fight, you won't have to do anything, you can just explore new lands, old lands, shipwrecks, big battle sites. They don't really know yet. The other thing they mentioned is that besides starting areas, every port will have to be founded by players or player guilds. So they're going to seed the coast with basically native villages or small towns, but most of the map will be uninhabited. And explorers will be able to name coastal towns, they'll be able to build towns, own towns, guilds will be able to own towns, so it'll give a more personal feel to when someone attacks your town, your port. You're going to really want to defend it because you basically own it. Now the devs had talked a lot about combat and a lot about how they want the fight system to work. So in Pirates of the Burning Sea, which is the closest analog to this game, you could be attacked in PvP zones, or if you were flagged, you could be attacked anywhere. So in this game, they want to reduce griefing and ganking, but they want to make sure that there's ample battles, ample number of battles. So when you're on the open sea, any player can pay for an armed escort, and members of the Navy or privateer organizations or freelancers can sign up for the escort duty. So basically, if someone is attacked and they have an escort piece of paper, for example, it'll drag in real people who are supposed to defend them based on a contract that they made. So their original location will not matter, and you'll be dragged into this instant battle with the person you're supposed to protect, and then you'll be put back where you were. If no players are available or online at the time, then apparently sufficient NPCs will spawn to protect you if you've made one of these escort packs. And on the open map, you won't be able to see what escort someone has, so they might have a massive fleet of escorts that are going to pop into that battle, but you won't know. So you'll have to take a risk, you'll have to check it out, you might get into the battle, you might not be able to get away. So it really adds a more dynamic aspect to the open world where you can't just tag someone and be like, oh, easy victory. You know, you might pop in there and there might be, 50 ships looking at you. That's obviously a bit exaggerated, but that's the kind of the feel they're going for, where it's more risk reward. You never know what you're going to get. They want to have sort of a bounty system in the game, which will be when you sink someone, they're going to generate loot. And one of the loot items will be correspondence. And opening the letter will tell you where 1 to 5 enemy ships are that have lots of valuable cargo and their last position. So, for example, it'll say they have diamonds on board and they left Havana port 20 minutes ago with a direction they're going, maybe. So it'll be kind of like a little bit of a bounty system where if you get sunk, it might have repercussions on your fellow nation members. So that might be interesting. Another interesting open sea mechanic they want to have in is basically you'll never know what ship you're attacking until you actually enter the instance. So ships on the open sea map will be basically a generic model, which when you attack it, it might be a frigate, it might be a cutter, it might be something bigger, but it'll give you the general class of the ship. So there'll be like a frigate model, a cutter model, a big ship model, a first rate model, etc., etc. But if your recognition skill is low, you might be mistaken. So you can mistake a frigate for a third rate, and then you pop into this battle and there's a third rate. So you might need to, invest points or skills into that, so you have an actual, chance of recognizing who you're going into battle against. So while this all sounds amazing, and the game looks amazing, and the plans are rather grandiose, the developer team is fairly small. It's only 5 to 6 people, so it's not a massive, studio. There's not going to be massive content. And that might be the downfall of the game. There might be too big of ambitions. An open world game is not something that you just make overnight. And to have it function, to have it be fun and flexible and full of content, that's a huge target to hit. The biggest thing is that the devs have not talked a lot about AI or encounters or scenarios. The game is almost solely based right now, from what it sounds like, off player versus player, which is good for a lot of players. But a lot of people don't like that. They want to play against AI, they want to relax, they want to PvP once in a while. But, having content like scenarios or like what would be considered a raid in other MMOs against AI, like a big fleet, a big challenge. You have to defend something, you have to attack something. That takes a lot of programming, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and there's not a whole lot of devs. So that might be one issue of the game, where instead of having a game that is, fully fleshed and, something that you can just play as like your one and only game, you might have a game that is great for PvP, great for big battles, but when that's not going on, there's not much to do. So as it stands, they want to have the final climactic battle be a large encounter, 25 versus 25, 30 versus 30, somewhere in there. But the thing is that in this game, commanding a fleet or having a fleet be cohesive will be a massive part of the game. And right now there's some problems with that, in my opinion. The camera, for example, is very zoomed in, so it's very hard to get a good, view of the battle. It's hard to tell what's going on perfectly. There's no mini-map, there's no, little open map that tells you where everybody is. So it's a lot more, you kind of rely on other people to keep your fleet in line, keep your fleet, working together. So that might be a challenge, and while it's, kind of realistic that you can't see around you completely, it might not be a good game mechanic. And this is one worry I have for, when there's 30 people that, you may not know, you may know some of them. You may have people in there that aren't very good, you might have really good people, and, that's where tensions can flare. Another issue that a lot of people might like, and a lot of people might dislike with Naval Action, is basically the fact that there is a sort of a random chance in any battle to get your ship blown up in one shot, or to be demasted in one volley. Basically, the way it works is the magazine for the ship is vulnerable, and if you get a lucky cannonball, you can hit that and the ship will instantly blow up. And just like masts, you can basically, if you're lucky, fire one broadside of chain shot, and if your balls actually hit, because it works as a hitbox system, then you could demask someone in 1 or 2 volleys. This basically allows the game to have something that takes away from skill. So if you're in a 1v1 for example, and it's a long fight, you've been fighting for half an hour because the game is quite slow paced and a fight could easily go that long or longer. But there's a chance that you could be winning that fight that you fought very hard for, and all of a sudden he shoots what will be his last broadside because he's about to sink, and suddenly, boom, there you go, up in flames instantly. And while a lot of people say, oh, it's historical, it's accurate, it's should be in the game, the fact is that it is a game, and it does take away from what should be skill based. So the game should be completely skill based to the fact that if you beat someone, you beat them. They shouldn't be allowed to just have a lucky shot that completely blows you up instantly. Because imagine you're in this final port battle, right? What will be called a port battle, or conquest battle, something like that. And it's 25 versus 25, and it's an amazing battle, and you're out of it in the first 2 seconds, just like that, because of one lucky cannonball. And that takes away from the fun, because while yeah, it might be cool to see someone blow up like that, you might have planned for this, you might have set aside time, you might not have that much time to game every day, and all of a sudden, you're excluded from this battle because not because you sailed badly, not because the enemy fleet beat you, but because one lucky cannonball, just happened to hit you and you just blew up. And this really ties into what one problem with the forums is right now, is that the game is not fully fleshed out by the devs. They haven't really stated if it's going to be, a hardcore simulator yet, or is it going to be, more casual for the open world and all that, because the combat is almost like a simulator. It's not quite as detailed, but a lot of people on the forums are of this notion that the game should be historically accurate to the point where you have to sail, hours to get somewhere. You have to, you might sink in a storm because, that's a good game mechanic, right? But basically on the forums there's like two factions. There's like a nice casual faction, which is, they want the game to be fun, pick up and play, and then there's a faction that wants it to be extremely based on a simulator. And while a simulator has good features and a casual game has good features, I think they really need to be mended and put together. Because you don't want a game that is a strict simulator, because, that would mean permadeath, that would mean, your character dies, or you get hit on your ship by a cannonball and, that's it, battle over, you're dead. And stuff like that. Stuff that just, it takes away from the game, and it just makes it more like you're reading a book or something. Like, if you really want that approach of, a pure simulator, there's other games out there that are more simulator based. Or, buy a boat, go on the ocean. That's probably your best bet for a simulator. But it all ties back to the fact that the devs haven't really stated exactly how it's going to be, and a lot of people are getting their hopes up that this is going to be some sort of hardcore simulator, or it's going to be a really casual game, kind of like Pirates of the Burning Sea, or Pirates of the Caribbean, or, Sea Dogs, or whatever game you want to talk about. But in reality, not that many people know that, the devs are kind of going for a nice balance here. And there are people posting on the forums saying, give us storms that sink you, give us, sail times, give us these tiny little details in the game that not even a massive developer team like Eve could do, such as, little conversations, little like interaction between factions, between the government. This is something that, this dev team, people have to realize it's a small dev team. It's not, a massive corporation like Blizzard or, Bethesda or something like that. It's not going to have that massive complexity that people are looking for. I mean, it might, and there might be some things that are amazing, and who knows how good these devs are, but I think the hopes on the forums are extremely high, and that could be bad, because the last thing you want to do is get hyped for a game and then go, oh, this isn't what I wanted. You have to kind of stay level-headed and think, okay, well, look at the combat, it's really good, it's really fun, it's a bit slow, let's be honest, it's very slow, there's no skills, okay, that's fine, but at the same time, you can't go full simulator, you can't go full casual, there has to be a balance. And that comes back to the point where, the combat is very slow, and it's fun, but some people have spent many battles, like many hours doing battles in the test, and some people have done only a few. Because the battles, while fun, they're not they're not very engaging, I guess the word would be. Almost a lack of complexity in battles because you have the sailing, you have positioning, you have aiming, but it feels like there's a layer of combat missing. It feels like there's a layer of tactical decisions that you get from skills. And I'm not saying they should put skills in the game, but maybe they want to consider something like objectives or more objectives, more scenarios, because right now it feels like World of Tanks sort of, where you start, you're in an arena, you die, that's it, you reset. But it's even less complex because there's less people. It's an open ocean. There's no like terrain to move around. So it's really kind of basic, like sail, shoot, outsail your opponent, outshoot your opponent, you win. But it doesn't have that kind of draw that really keeps you into the combat. So that's basically my take on Naval Action right now, and I hope it gives you, an insight into what the game's going to look like and what it's going to be like and what the devs have planned. But that is basically all of the game right now, and until more, is released by the devs, we'll just have to play it by ear and see how it goes. And I hope that they, take a lot of input from the forums, and I hope they ignore a lot of input on the forums because, like anything, there is good and bad stuff on that forum, and they have to be choosy. And in the end, hopefully, they make a good game.